Meantime, as the list of foreign leaders who formally recognize a Palestinian state grows, French President Emmanuel Macron, while sitting right next to President Trump, pushed back on Trump's criticism of the move.
I think it honors Hamas, and you can't do that because of October 7th. You just can't do that.
Nobody forgets the 7th of October. But after almost 2 years of war, what is the result? You have as many Hamas fighters as you had the first day. So it doesn't work to dismantle the Hamas. This is not the right way to proceed.
Ravi Agrawal is following this closely as Foreign Policy's editor-in-chief and host of FP Live. Ravi, it's good to have you. This split between the U.S. and our longtime European allies, what does it mean for any possible solution?
I don't think it moves the needle, to be honest. Look, the European countries that are now recognizing Palestine, they're making what they claim is a moral case. But Chris, it's mostly political. I mean, there are so many reasons why. Why didn't they do this earlier? Why not 10 years ago, 20 years ago, or in 1993 when Arafat and Rabin shook hands on the White House lawn? And second, Chris, it's worth reminding that the vast majority of the world, some 2/3 of the world's countries, had recognized Palestine years and years ago. And lastly, and more to the point here, I guess, all of this rhetoric that we're hearing at the UN about a Palestinian state is just so far disconnected at this point from reality on the ground. I mean, I'd like to remind our viewers that Palestine is unrecognizable on the ground. Gaza's a wasteland. The Palestinian administration has no funding. Israel won't give it any of the tax revenue it needs to pay workers. And so if you want to look at one issue, really, why the UN today feels as stymied as it does on its 80th birthday, this is probably the biggest ticket item on that list.
Well, Macron said point blank, Ravi, that there is one person who can do something about the crisis in Gaza, and that's the President of the United States. Is he right about that?
Yeah, I think he is. Look, European countries, no matter what they do here already, the reaction we're seeing in Israel is both from the Israeli public, which is not in favor of a Palestinian state, but also this particular Israeli government, the most right-wing in its history, is saying that it will go ahead and annex the West Bank. And indeed, it has plans to do so. So who has leverage? And it really is just the United States here. I will point out, however, no matter what the Trump administration thinks on this issue, it is very clear that the American public mood is shifting. There's a long-term shift here where American public sentiment favoring Israel over Palestine is at its lowest point in 25 years. And shifts like that, when they happen, they're not easy to reverse. And if I were Israel or an Israeli government official right now, I would be very worried about that.
Well, Netanyahu speaks to the UN on Friday. What would you expect his message to be?
I think he's going to double down, just as he's doubled down for the better part of the last 2 decades. He has already hinted at what he's going to say, in that he thinks he can create a super Sparta out of Israel, which is basically a historic reference of autarky, to say that they will hunker down. They don't need the rest of the world. They don't need trade. They are happy to be a pariah state. They will deal with it. Down that road lies ruin. I would not recommend it for anyone. And remember, Sparta lost.
Let me ask you quickly about something observationally, and it's the way world leaders have been dealing with Donald Trump, and they've adjusted right along the way. We've seen it with Ukraine's President Zelensky, who went from that terrible Oval Office disaster to now Donald Trump completely switching gears. And now you have Macron saying to Trump, if he wants to win the Nobel Peace Prize, he should stop the Gaza war. Is this a strategy world leaders could be using to get some results with Trump when it comes to what, for all the reasons you laid out, seems to be something that's quite intractable with Gaza?
Yeah, look, flattery is as old as diplomacy itself. I think every leader around the world has realized that appealing to Trump's instinct for a deal or titles that he would like, such as being a Nobel Peace Prize winner, it kind of lubricates diplomacy in a sense. And so you can't fault leaders for trying that. I wouldn't rely on it too much. I mean, ultimately, Trump's foreign policy is very clearly America first, and he is going to judge, engage what he needs to do purely by by his own interests and by what he deems to be American interests until he sees that Israel really has lost a lot of global soft power and America with it. I don't see him really changing tack on Israel.